Oof. Yeah, good morning, guys. Sorry for the delay. WebEx was again being not so helpful to me. It's getting there is a pattern now, I guess. But the good news is that I think we can use Microsoft Teams. That is what I came to know. That the Microsoft Teams we can actually record the lecture as well. So let's hope that after midsem we will simply shift away from WebEx. Oh, sorry, I have to. Okay, sorry, there is no attendance today. I forgot to. I thought I've forgotten the attendance thing. But yeah, there is no attendance today. Um, whomsoever wants to attend. And please, sorry, I'm being a bit harsh on you guys. I'm taking a class today, but we are already running on a very tight schedule actually. If I had more time left in the semester, I would have probably dedicated it towards revision. But before the midsem, I would have given a week to revise. But because the schedule is already so tight, it is difficult to arrange, uh, you know, extra classes as well. Because see, I'm pretty sure you guys are having a very tight schedule from morning to evening every day. So even finding slots to the slot for the reserve lab slot that we have, I think Neelu ma'am might be taking a class in that slot, right? So has she talked about taking a class in that slot? Because I received a mail from her, so I'm assuming that you'll have a class. Yeah, that is what. So and I had no other option but to say, yeah, go ahead because I am not using that slot. So even the chances for extra classes are going down. Otherwise, we'll have to start having extra classes at 8 p.m. in the evening, something that I don't want to. So yeah, so that is why I thought, let's just get through the lecture. It is probably going to be a shorter lecture anyhow because most of the things that are there in lecture 5.3, I think we have already discussed it. Other than the size of operator, pretty much everything you guys already know. What is the range, and I probably should have mentioned overflow and underflow, two terms in the presentation. I realized it later that I should have mentioned overflow and underflow as well. But we have already talked about what overflow is and underflow is during our discussions. So we will talk about it during the lecture. Um, Let me write some questions then.
We had to discuss about row major and column major.
Oh yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Uh,
Oh,
uh,
you had some
y-
job.
no, no, sir. You told na that we will
Ha
start
ha ha
today.
ha. Sure. Very good, very good. I'll start with row major and column major. Actually, in the other batch, we did actually discuss row and column major. I remembered for them. But yeah, in your case, I simply forgot. So yeah, sure. We'll have a discussion on row major and column major as well. Um, how many people are there? I'm expecting a smaller crowd today. So what we'll do is we'll wait till 10:10. Okay, 10. It is 10:08 right now. We'll wait till 10:10. Whomsoever is there at 10:10, we'll just start. Till then, those people who are already here, if you have any queries, doubts, you can ask. I have some mails which I have to reply back to, and that I will do anyhow. But other than whomsoever has already sent an email, if you have any other queries, we can discuss.
I had one doubt regarding that
What?
third link that shared in homework, sir. That what is the difference between typecasting to float and adding a F when we are initializing a float variable?
Okay, very good. We will do that. Um, that is one question. I have another one. F flush. Whose mic is on? Whomsoever it is, please switch it off. We are having some echo thing. Okay. So let's start with F flush. Please, all of you,
Sir,
please.
are you sir, are you on a speaker or are you using a earphone?
I'm using an earphone.
Sir, everyone is muted. I
I
don't
could
know
see
why.
Nikhil Verma is not muted. I could see.
Sir, actually, it is means I'm clicking, but it is not going to mute.
Acha. Okay. Mm, I'll just pluck out my earphone and put it again. Just a minute.
Sir, I will leave and join again. Actually,
Okay, fine. I will also do this. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir, you are
Yes,
audible.
sir.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I'm audible, right?
Yes, sir, it's now okay. Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. So maybe it was some problem at my end, or it was WebEx having some kind of enmity with me again. Okay. So uh, let's do the F flush thing first. So what happens is something like this. Whenever you take input from some source, okay, it could be your keyboard or it could be from a file. Okay, what happens is you all remember that we have these system calls, right, which are working in the background to enable everything that you do. Now there are actually a very small set of system calls which are doing a lot of work in the background. So what happens is you don't really read input at, let us say, one character at a time. Okay, what happens is there are spaces in memory known as buffers. Okay, so what happens is whenever I am doing some kind of input output, these things are first stored in buffers. So let us say if I am typing a, B, C, D. Okay, it's not like scanf will get A, B, C, D directly. Okay, um, what happens is usually the event that actually flushes the buffer, we call it flushing of buffer, as in whatever has been collected in the buffer, it is provided to that particular process. Okay, or the process. This is when we are doing input. So basically, whatever was inputted using a keyboard, it goes into a special place in the memory called buffer. It is not directly given to your program. This is the idea. Okay, as soon as you press enter, whatever content was there in the buffer, it is provided to your program, and then you can do anything over it. You can do get s, you can do f get s, you can do scan f, whatever you want. That code runs only after the buffer has been flushed. Okay, buffer being flushed means that whatever was lying in the buffer, it is now provided to your process, your program. Do whatever you want with it. The same thing is true the other way out as well. When you do printf something, it doesn't actually get printed straight away. So what happens, it goes to an output buffer. Okay, you keep on sending more and more printfs to the output buffer, and again, usually when you do a slash n, okay, when you change the new line, the buffer is flushed onto the output device. So then you will see the message being displayed. on your screen. So this is one of the issues. Okay, you can try it out actually. Write a loop where you okay, how can you do that? Basically, you have to print something which without doing slash n's, and then you will probably realize what is happening. It's a bit difficult. You will have to use some weighting mechanism, some but so don't do that. The idea is that there are two places in the memory where input gets buffered. Okay, the idea is buffering is you collect some input or collect some output before processing it. So fflush is a function. What it does is that it actually flushes off your buffer. Okay, now the problem with fflush is fflush is implementation dependent. Okay, it might work on certain platforms, it might not work on certain platforms. um, the standard C, it doesn't actually say much about what fflush should do. Okay, and at least I have tried fflush on GCC and Linux. It actually works for other streams, but not, let us say, for std in. Okay, with std in it doesn't work. That means you cannot flush out the buffer that is carrying your current keyboard input. Okay, you cannot use fflush with it. It is so that is these are all issues related to getting input output properly. This is the problem. Now, when do we actually need something like flush? This is required when we are taking specially character inputs. Okay, one character at a time kind of inputs. There what happens is sometimes, in the buffer, this enter that you press, okay, that also goes inside the buffer itself. Okay, so let us say I want to read a single character from the input. Your program will not wait for an input at all. It will simply go ahead. Why? Because in the input buffer there is already an enter, maybe from the last command that you gave. And enter is also a single character. So your char c, whatever you used for taking the input, will simply take up that slash n character and move forward. So in order to clear that buffer, there is something that you have to do. Okay, in the code that I shared, because I also started using uh, I also started using I tried fflush at that time, but at that time realized that fflush was not working. So then I checked on Google. People told that fflush is implementation dependent, and there is no way other than clearing up the buffer one character at a time. So essentially you keep on reading from the buffer unless there is nothing to read. So if you go and check the assignment solution that I have sent you, there is something known as clean stdin, okay, in that code. That part is just going to do the same thing that fflush is supposed to do, because fflush doesn't work on standard keyboard input. So don't worry too much. What when we'll okay, I think I probably forgot to include it in your syllabus. Just a minute. Has any one of you seen the syllabus I should teach you? um just a minute. Oh, no, it is there. It is there. So in week 9, we have file handling. Okay. So in file handling, I will discuss all these things. So don't worry about it as of now. Just assume that buffers are some temporary places where inputs and outputs get stored. Sometimes we want it to be empty. Sometimes, okay, so that I can take a fresh input. So this is where things like fflush are used. Okay, does that answer your question, Nitin? Don't worry too much about fflush for now. Uh, so so I had one more query other than fflush. What was it? Someone had asked it, and then I just saw fflush, so I started, uh, I started answering that. There was some query, right? No.
Yes, sir, I asked about that type conversion to float and adding.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So what happens is something like this. When you actually create a constant in the memory, right? Creating a constant means, again, it is similar to creating a variable. So basically you have to reserve some place somewhere in temporary memory. It is not really an actual memory location in your RAM, but maybe somewhere in a register or something like that. You have to put that thing, right? So when I say int I equal to 5, right, that 5 has some kind of binary representation that has to be assigned to I, right? So where exactly is that representation line? It has to be put somewhere, and then it has to be copied at the address of I, right? Wherever I has been allocated in the memory. So now I have to create the constant somewhere, right? Usually it probably would be in some register. It won't be in the main memory, but somewhere it has to be created. Now, how much space should I give uh, to this temporary constant that I have to create? Okay, so now different languages have different rules regarding that. Okay, so I remember it clearly for Java. I think it is the same for C, but then in C, it is possible that it could be different for GCC and different for Turbo C++ or whatever it is. But basically, what happens is let me give you the example of Java itself, because it doesn't matter. I'm just trying to tell you a concept. So what happens is, in Java, whenever you write something like I equal to 5, okay, 5 is by default long. Okay, the data type of this constant, an integer constant, is long by default. Okay, so the amount of temporary storage that will be allocated to this particular value will be whatever is the size of long on that machine. Similarly, whenever I declare a real valued constant, so let us say I have written float f equal to 2.5. So in order to store 2.5, 2.5 by default is treated as a double, not a float. Okay, so different languages, I think it is exactly the same in C as well, that by default your integer constants are either int or long. Okay, I think I have probably again mixed up. Maybe it is int only in Java also. Okay, the idea is yeah, because I think we use L in Java, so yes, it should be integer only. The idea is, when you create these constants in the memory to be assigned to a variable, you have to reserve some space, right? How much amount of space should you reserve to store these bit patterns before they are assigned to a variable? um, if you just do float f equal to 2.5, what happens is, when 2.5 is to be represented, by default it is represented as a double. So the amount of space that double takes up on your machine, for example, it could be 8 bytes. So you have to reserve 8 bytes in your memory, and present 2.5 in the binary format in those 8 bytes, and then it will be assigned to a float variable, right? So it gets typecasted to a float. Okay, you have to do whatever is the mechanism for typecasting. You have to use that and typecast it to float. When I say float f equal to 2.5 f, it basically tells the compiler that this, don't reserve 8 bytes for this constant. Okay, it is going to be assigned to a float, so only use 4 bytes. Okay, so what I do is, and this is why this is the kind of typecasting of the constant. It is not typecasting of your variable, it is typecasting of the constant. That by default 2.5 would have been a double, but when you put an f to it, f after it, it tells the compiler that, don't reserve 8 bytes for it, just reserve 4 bytes for it, and use those 4 bytes to assign the value to f, right? So the idea is, without 2.5 f, there will be 8 bytes which will represent 2.5, and with 2.5 f, you will use only 4 bytes. The compiler will use only 4 bytes, and then, represent 2.5 in that, and then assign it to float. Is it getting clearer?
Yes, sir.
Basically, it's about constant representation. Okay, how do you represent a constant? This is the idea. Okay, uh, there are some defaults for every language. I think it is int only. Okay, let me just check it on Google. What is it for Java defaults?
So it is end.
Type. It is int, no? Okay,
Yes, sir.
because I remember the L thing, the L suffix is also there in Java. Okay, so then if L is there in Java as well, so then certainly the default is int. And similarly, f suffix is also there in Java. So clearly the default is double there as well. And the same thing is in C, that by default, if you create an integer constant, it will be int by default, and by default, if you create a real valued constant, it will be double. So now it is clear. Basically, you will have to store the 2.5 thing into an 8 byte place and then assign it to a float variable. So in order to avoid that, you can simply say, no, this is actually a floating type constant only. This is the idea of using that f. Is it clear? Actually, this was a relevant discussion for the current lecture itself. So I think this was a good question. Yeah. So who asked it? Nishchal, right?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Okay. So that this is the overall idea. Okay. And it is the same for other things as well. You have some other constants like L, LF or things like that. So all these are of the same type. You basically typecast a value before you assigning it to a variable. Okay. Any volunteers today? Again, from now on, I am not really going to do this thing because we already lose a lot of time with it. So whomsoever wants to be a volunteer, please like raise your hand kind of thing.
So I can be one.
Okay, very good. So Pranav, Nishchal, both of you, right?
Yes, sir.
Um, how many people do we have today? 55. Yeah, so it is a smaller one. Maybe two more people. Arunim could be one more. Okay. Anyone else? Let me just open up my shepherding sheet. So do you guys have all the classes today? Did any of the faculty member not to take the class? Okay, Sahil, you are one more. So I have 4. Let uh, my sheet open up. Okay. Guys, please tell me all your sections.
CSAI roll number 10.
Okay,
Sir, I am
CS.
from CS, roll number 20.
Okay.
So mine is CS 13.
Just a minute. CSAI roll number 10 is Pranav. Yeah. Anyone else from CSAI? Okay, then CS. Yeah, go ahead.
The 13.
Yes, sir. CS 25.
Sir, me CSAI 42. Sahil Hussain.
So Sahil, I was asking who is from CSAI. Okay, Nishchal, you are
Sir, me
13.
also. Sir,
Just a minute.
CSEI 13, 1 3.
Acha, ek minute. So Nishchal, it is 13, and Arunim, you are 25.
25.
Acha, got it. And then CSAI, who else?
CSAI 1313. What's up?
Sorry. Actually, I am not looking at the chats. Just a minute.
Sir, CS 11.
I think
I 4. Okay, let us have Vatsa
Sir is
also.
not taking attendance. Sir, I think they are thinking you're taking attendance.
No, it is not
Everyone is
attendance,
typing.
guys. No, it is not attendance, guys. It is just sorry. I did it, and I probably this is for shepherds, guys. So I after Arunim, I just needed Sahil. Sahil, it is CSAI, na? ठीक है.
Yes, sir.
CSAI.
42, sir.
Okay. So I have 4. Okay, Pranav, Arunim, Sahil, and Nishchal, right? Okay. So let's start, guys. I'm still writing some questions, but at least start with the first one because people wanted to have a discussion on this. Okay, I'll write some more questions here. You can start with the first question.
anyone wants to take this question up? Okay, I'll do it. Okay, so basically row major and column major are two mechanisms, and the only from the computer's point of view or the compiler's point of view, there isn't much difference, but the difference is only in your understanding, in the understanding and the perception of the programmer. So if you declare a, let's say, 5 by 5 array, and you address it like if you have, let's say, x and y coordinates. So if you use the elements as let's say ARR index x index y, then it is it will store in the row major format. But if it is index y index x, then it is in the column major format. So basically, from the point of view of the computer or the compiler, there isn't any difference, but it is for our understanding and for our convenience. Yeah. Anyone
Yeah,
else
and,
wants to?
and if we want to convert, like if it is stored in the row major format and if we want to change into column major, so like we can think of it as a matrix and we can convert it into the transpose of a matrix. So it can be interconverted among both of them.
Yeah, this was a very
Yeah, I
nice analogy.
highlighted.
Even I never
I
thought
think
about this thing, this transpose thing. Very good.
So any doubt, anyone? Or we can move on.
I guess I'll highlight a couple of use cases and then we'll move on. So let's say the 5 by 5 example. Let's say if you are storing it in the format X and Y. So this is useful when you have to access all Y's for a particular X at once. So you can just do ARR index, let's say 2, and you can access all the Y's that are stored at index 2. However, if you want to do all the x's stored at index y equals 2, you'll have to have a loop or something. So in that case, if you store it in format y index x, that it will be faster. Do we have any control? As I said, it's just a logical thing. So it's not like the computer differentiates between row major or column major. It's just if you are taking, let's say, input of a matrix, then if you write a 5 by 5 matrix, so if you write index x index y equals input, then it will be a row major format. However, if you write index y index x equals input, then it will be a column major format. Does that answer your question, Nehal?
But it says a storage mechanism, and you're talking about input.
No, I mean, let's say if you want to take input in an array, right? Like, it's you have, let's say, 25
Sorry. I was
numbers.
replying. I was replying to some emails. I could not. Is there a problem? I mean,
No, so I'm trying to explain, like, trying to answer Nehal's question. If she does not understand, then I guess you can take over. So what I'm saying is, if we have 25 numbers, we want to store it in a 5 by 5 array, then we should look ahead and look at what we are going to use that array for. So for example, if they are xy coordinates or something like that, let's say we have an image, 5 by 5 image, we discussed it yesterday. So we have RGB values. So if we know that we are going to access a particular row at once, then we will store it in x then y. So it will be ARR index x index y. However, if we know that we are going to access columns at once, then we'll store it in index y index x.
so
So it's
let me actually share a screen, a handwritten image that I received over email yesterday. It was sent by Sanskriti, one of your batchmates. I'm not sure which section she belongs to, but she actually sent this to me over email. Asked me, sir, is this correct? And it was absolutely correct. So I would like to share that with you guys so that it becomes easier to understand. So let's share that particular email from Sanskriti.
No, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now it's gone. I guess sir is having some problems.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so
Yes,
I
sir.
told you, right? I have some issues with. So Pranav, I made you the co-host. Can you make me the presenter again?
I'll try. I'm on phone. Let's see.
There is an option make presenter.
Make presenter. Yes, sir. Done.
Okay, just a minute. See, and this is so weird with WebEx. I did nothing else, but I simply shared another Chrome tab. Can you see it now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So Pranav, you can probably explain it from this picture. This is a very good picture that Sanskriti sent me. It's a handwritten thing, but it's a very good thing.
Sir, actually, I got it. The thing was, Pranav was saying that like while taking input, you like whether you take it as X, Y, or Y, X. But so as far as I know, it's like fixed for a language how it takes, how it stores arrays. So that was what was confusing me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So basically, the idea is like this. Um, it is fixed for a particular language. That is true.
Sir,
Um,
I mean, as far as I know, all computers store everything in just a line, right? So whether you take row major, column major, it's going to be just a straight line of, let's say, here
yes.
9.
Yeah, but the
Yes.
order will differ, right? Depending on row major,
Yeah.
column major.
That is the
Yeah,
only thing
exactly.
that
That's
differs.
the idea.
One thing is
That is the
fixed
only
is
thing
that
that. Go ahead. Sorry.
yes, I was just saying that it is fixed for a language and like it is default, and like if a row major is default, and it will be stored in that way. And if we want to convert it to column major, we can do it. But one thing is fixed, and that is the default thing.
And sir, this is important. This becomes important when there is transfer of data between different languages or different systems, because they might be
Yeah.
one might be storing it in row major and another might be storing it in column major.
Actually,
So
let me tell you when it is important. It will be important sometimes for you guys when you are doing some competitive coding. Okay, during competitive coding, many a times you might receive a question where they'll purposefully make you create an array where you'll have to access it in column major format. Okay, so basically because they'll know that the access time for column major will be higher, and you will not be able to do it properly if you have not given a thought to it. Okay, I have got stuck in this. This is why I know it. Okay. When I was in my BTech third year, I participated in a coding competition. It was organized by Microsoft, um, and there we realized that our code was actually getting timed out when we were submitting it, and we were not really getting why it was getting timed out. And then it just struck me that basically I'm accessing the array column wise instead of row wise. So what happens is, if you try to store the array in a row major fashion, but you access the array in column major fashion. So this is the idea that the actual storage is default. It's set. I mean, it's you cannot change it. It is your language property. Okay, the language will decide how is it going to store it. And as far as I know, there is really no language where it is allowed for you to pick whether you want it to be stored in row major or column major. Okay, so it is fixed for a language. So if it is C, it is always going to be stored in row major. But when you access the array, because it is random access, you can access any ai comma aij at any time, right? Now you can write a loop where you actually access it column by column. Okay, so you access um, a00, then a10, then a20, then a30, then a01, a2, a11, a21, like this. Then what will happen is, because you are trying to access your array column by column, the access time will be higher. Okay, so this is the only place where you need to understand the difference between row major and column major. Otherwise it is just the same. I mean, it doesn't matter usually what is the underlying storage for your row major or column major. It is just some way to store it in the memory. And this particular image that I have shared, this is just telling you how it gets stored in the memory. That's it, right? So the order in which because you understand that array is just contiguous memory. Actually, even that is no longer true. From what I understand, Java has a mechanism where it actually allocates memory in different chunks. Okay, so it is possible that one row is stored somewhere else and another row is stored somewhere else. But in C, at least, it is all contiguous memory. And this is the order. If it is row major, this is the order. If this is column major, this is the order in which the variables are stored. But as I said, don't worry too much about it as of now. For your typical day-to-day coding, it doesn't matter. Okay, it only matters in very high highly if you want to write a highly efficient code. And that is why I said that it might matter when you are doing some competitive coding, because maybe your array access pattern will actually be a column major pattern. So then it may make sense to actually flip your array, take a transpose of your array and then store it like this. Okay, I mean, I'm just probably going too far ahead, but the idea is, don't get too much intimidated by row major and column major. They are just ways to store your data in memory. That's it. Okay, is it now
Yes,
clear?
sir. Yes, I got it. It's fixed, but it's up to us as programmers. We can choose our columns and rows in such a way that in case we need it to be efficient, it is.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I understand. Thank you, sir.
Sir, but why is the access time higher for column major, sir?
Yeah. So this is when you study computer organization. Would you like to know more? So there is something that you can search on the internet. I will not tell you in the lecture. There is something known as locality of reference. Okay, I'll just type it here. Just read more about it. What is the principle of locality of reference? Okay, just read about this, and then maybe you will be able to understand that why the access time is higher if you try to access uh, the array in a column major fashion when it is stored in a row major fashion, or vice versa. Okay, just search for this on the internet, you will understand.
So there's something a term jumping in that case when we access in column major.
Yes, so that is the idea. I mean, read what is locality of reference, then you will understand what kind of jumping is happening there.
Okay.
Okay,
But
So
can
read
we
this.
use both the methods in a single program? Like
Uh,
if in a
no, you can use any method. See, it's like this. Your language will not stop you from accessing your array in any fashion. It can be random fashion. You can access a 00, then a 32, then a 11, then a 56. You can access it in
yes,
any
sir.
any order. Okay, array is basically a random access thing. Okay, it is not a linked list kind of thing. You can access any element any point of time. I'm talking about efficiency, the amount of time it will take to access. Okay, if you access it in a row major fashion, a 00, a 01, a 02, a 03, then a 10, a 11, a 12, a 13, like this. Okay, if you access it in row major format and your array is stored in row major format, this is the most efficient time wise. Okay, um, but if if you don't care about time, it doesn't matter. That is what I am trying to say, that probably for you guys, when you are writing initial code, it doesn't matter. You don't care what is row major, what is column major. It is a concept that you should be aware of, especially when you're trying to do competitive coding. Sometimes your code might just time out because you are accessing your array. I'm talking about arrays, when you have arrays of size thousands by thousands kind of thing. Okay, then it might actually create a significant difference. This might create a difference of a few hundred milliseconds kind of thing. This is the issue. This is why I'm saying this. Okay, but if you're not doing any competitive coding, don't worry about it. Okay. um yeah, let's just move ahead to the next question. I'll just stop this. So I should I stop this? I mean, is it clear to everyone? I'll stop the tab. Okay, whatever I have shared. Looks like it should be clear now. So I'll go back to the same document. Okay, this is an interesting question. Who will answer this? Okay, let's start, Shepherds.
So I guess here like half byte integer data type. So the size of integer is 4 bytes. So if we talk about half byte integer data type, so it can be 2 byte, I think.
So is that what you
Right.
mean? I think he means half a byte, like 4 bits.
Yeah, it is 4 bits.
Yeah, so it's 4 bits. So uh, it has basically, like, we can do PNC and we can see that it has a maximum of 16 states. So 0001, yeah, so on, so on. So it has 16 states. So if it is unsigned, then it will have values ranging from -8 up to 7. And if it is, because we have two's complement stuff, and if it is unsigned, then it will have it can take values from 0 up to 16. No, sorry, 0 up to 15. My bad.
Yeah,
Including 0 and 15.
N minus one.
yeah, so you just misspoke a little. So basically, if it is signed, then it is -8 to +7, and if it is unsigned, it is 0 to 15. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I guess I wanted to say that as well.
Yeah, I understand. You wanted to say the same. You just uh, mistakenly used the word unsigned. So yeah, is this part clear? If you are able to understand the answer to this question, you have basically understood how data is stored.
So sir, it's basically a short. Hello.
Yeah, guys, any questions? Yeah, that we have to point. Imaginary does not mean complex. Imaginary means an arbitrary thing that we just made up.
So I think imaginary means we are assuming, like the Pramod said.
Yeah, it actually doesn't exist. We are just discussing it about in paper.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Guys, any questions, sir? Should we move to?
Navdeep had asked to explain again.
Yeah, okay. Ayushman explain signed and unsigned. Okay, so basically, when you store any integer, we're not talking about floats or doubles. When you store any integer in memory, it's basically zeros and ones, right? So what happens is, if you want, what do you think happens when you have to store negative numbers? We have to have some way of differentiating negative and positive numbers. So let's say we have an 8 bit, which is 8 ones and zeros, 8 bits. So what we do is we assume that if the first, that is the leftmost bit, is 1, then the number is negative, and if it is 0, then the number is positive. So
Yes. Sorry guys, I'm back. Go ahead.
so we assume that, and this is called signed. However, we sometimes do not need negative numbers, so we can just assume that if it is 1, then it is positive, and if it is 0, it is positive, like positive in either case. So that is called unsigned. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Basically, it means that unsigned contains the positive numbers, na?
Yeah, unsigned can store only positive numbers, and signed can store positive as well as negative, but storing negative numbers comes at cost of reducing the range. So if it is 8-bit, then the range of unsigned will be 0 to 255. However, the range of unsigned will be minus 128 to 127. So we went from 255 to 127 maximum.
The
Yeah.
range of signed will be from minus 128 to 127.
Yeah, of signed. Did I say it the other way around again? So sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, signed will be minus 128 to 127. You can look up 2's complement arithmetic on YouTube or Google or something like that. I think it will help. Guys, any other questions? Or should we move ahead?
Yeah, so is it clear, guys? Because if you are clear with this part, you have basically understood how integers work. Okay, the only thing that is going to change are the number of bits. Okay, it could be int, it could be long, it could be any, it could be short. The only thing that will change is the number of bits. Yes, Sahil, that is what it means, right? Okay, both Sahils. So no, imaginary, because no such data type
So
actually
I was
exists.
answering Sahil Rati.
Ha, I got it. I got it later. That Sahil was answering Sahil. Okay. Yeah. So that is the idea, guys. So please understand this part, that the whole range thing, it is derived out of the number of bits. There is a limitation on what I can store. Okay. If there are only n bits, there are only 2 to the power n possibilities that can be stored in it, right? So I cannot store anything more than 2 to the power n. Okay, so there are only 2 to the power n different states, and these different states can be interpreted in any way you want. You can basically start saying that 0000 is essentially 1 crore. If you want, you can do that. Okay, it's your interpretation of 0000. Okay, but if there are only 4 bits, then there are only 16 possibilities. So you can say 0001 means 1 crore. 0010 means 2 crore, whatever you want. You can have any interpretation of these 16 states. That is up to you. That is up to the language. That is up to the application. But there are only these many possible states, and because of this, you have a range issue, that every data type has a range. Okay, the minimum it can store and the maximum it can store. So guys, please make sure you understand this part, because if you understand this part, the other questions are not really that important. Then overflow and underflow is simply can be understood in like one sentence. But if you understand this part, then you have understood the integer representation.
Sir, I wanted to ask that you said that we have maximum state. So, sir, what if any calculation in any for anyone exceeds the
Yes,
maximum state?
that is
Sir,
that
can
is exactly.
if we use in decimal 2.32 into 10 to the power 100, something like that, and we consider only the decimal part, and the 10 to the power 100 is not considered in integer but in a symbol type. So would we be able to
Yes,
do?
yes. See, so basically, first of all this was actually applicable to integers only. Floating points values, right? Real values. There is a completely different way to represent them. There is an IEEE standard. Actually, I forgot what is the number for it. There is a
754.
standard. That. So basically, there is an IEEE standard which defines how floating point numbers should be represented. So floating point is a very different thing. Okay, it is not really the integer thing, and it is a bit more complicated. Even though I have written this, don't discuss this mantissa and exponent. It might be too difficult for people to understand this. Okay, in fact, I thought after putting the lecture out, I thought I should not have put it in. Okay, so I won't ask a question over this in the exam, so don't be worried about it. This mantissa and exponent thing is very complicated. You will have to understand binary arithmetic. Only then can you actually understand what is a mantissa and an exponent. So don't worry much about it. Just even if you can understand the integer thing, how integers work, okay, at least you can understand what is happening with overflow and underflow. Overflow is basically whenever you have a value that is beyond the maximum value that your data type can store. Okay, so in this 4-bit example, okay, sorry, Pranav and other shepherds, please, you can take up the overflow underflow question now.
So should I try mantissa and exponent in decimal system?
It's okay if
not
you can
touch them
somehow
in
explain
binary?
it to them. Sure.
So because we have already done mantissa and exponent, we know what that is.
Oh, you have done.
So
I'm
it's
sorry.
logarithm. So it's logarithms it's just logarithm in base 2.
Yes. Go ahead. Try to explain it
I'll
using
try,
that.
but guys, if you don't understand, you can just skip this part. But if you do, it's great, I guess. So on that
go
note,
ahead.
I'll try. Yeah. So basically, let's say you have a number 42. So in scientific notations, you would write it as 4.2 into 10 to the power of 10. So over here, we can also write this as a tuple, or like a as a pair of numbers as 4.2 comma 1. So it is 4.2 into 10 to the power of 1, right? So we can write it as 4.2 comma 1. Let's say we have another number 0.1. You can write it as 1 comma minus 1. I hope this made sense, because if this didn't, nothing will. So this is basically how scientific notation works. You have a number, you try to have it such that it is number point something, just one number point something, something.
You can
Yes,
use
sir.
a notepad or something. I have made you the presenter. You can
I'm actually
open a
on my
notepad.
phone.
Acha,
So...
okay, fine. So sorry.
Or maybe we'll skip to the next question. I will connect my PC.
Okay, go ahead. So we don't have much time. We have only 2 minutes left. So guys, we can probably go to the next question. Sorry, I made Pranav the presenter, so you will have to make me the presenter again.
Yeah, I'll just do that in a second.
Or otherwise, I'll just write the question in the chat. Basically, the question is how do you use size of? This is the question. How do we use?
Is in that underflow and overflow one? Do we have to explain
Yeah, sorry, underflow and overflow. Okay, let me explain that. We'll move forward straight away. So basically,
I'll send them an email with the explanation, maybe.
very good, very good. So
Like
that
last
will
time.
be good. Yeah, that will be good.
Yeah.
So I'll just sorry, I'm infringing in your territory again because the time is limited. So what is overflow and underflow? We just took an example of 4 bits, right? The range there is -8 to +7 in that 4-bit example. Nothing more than that and nothing less than that can be represented there, right? So what if I now have two very short integers? Okay, one is 4 and one is 5. Okay, it can be represented because my range is -8 to +7, so I can represent 4 and 5 both in this very short int data type. And if I do 4 plus 5, it will become 9, right? Now 9 cannot actually be represented in very short int. Why? Because it has gone beyond the range, the maximum range. So what happens is, this is known as the case of an overflow. Overflow as in, my final result is beyond the capacity of my data type. This is known as overflow. It is greater than the maximum value that my data type can contain. Again, it could be anything. It could be signed, it could be unsigned, it could be long, it could be integer, it could be short, it could be anything. The concept is exactly the same. Overflow means you now have a value which cannot be represented in the data type that we are using. So usually what happens is, it it circles around. What it means is, the representation of let us say 8 in this very short int data type is the same as the representation of -8. How does it happen? So basically it circles around. Circles around means, the moment an overflow happens, basically your range goes back to the minus, minus max value. So it's like this. If I try to represent 8 in the very short int data type, it will be represented by the same thing as -8, the last value, the last negative value. Similarly, if it is 9, it will become -7. If it is 10, it will become -6. If it is 11, it will become -5, so on and so forth. So it will keeping rounds. Okay, so basically, um, there will be a representation for 9 in the very short int thing, but it will be the same as the representation for -7. Okay, this is known as overflow. So now what you can do is something like this. Yes, 8 goes to -8, right? Because very short in here. No, that is what I'm saying. This is the okay, I can now share my screen again. So it is the imaginary data type we talked about. It is only applicable there. Okay, and similarly underflow is the opposite, that if you try to represent anything that is less than -8, so if you try to represent -9 in this very short int thing, it will become +7. Why? Because +7 is the highest value. So -9 will also circle around. It will go back to the maximum value. So think about it like a wheel. In that wheel in those melas, right? That round wheel kind of thing. That it keeps on churning. It keeps on churning. So that is the overall idea. Yeah, Ferris wheel. Sorry, thank you. I was not really getting that term, Ferris. So it is like this. If you put a value that is greater than the data type, it will simply keep on circling around in the same range. This is the idea. So now there is a very good way to figure out how overflow works and how underflow works. Use a short data type probably. Okay, and then assign it the maximum possible value, and then keep on adding 1 to it. You will see what values it takes. Similarly, assign it the least value, and then keep on subtracting 1 value from it. I'll probably share I'll put a example in the examples folder today. Okay, just run that example and you will understand what is overflow and what is underflow. And size of, we'll probably talk about size of in the beginning of the first lecture after midsem. but it is not that big a deal. You can simply read the slides. Its size of is just an operator. It tells you the size of a particular data type or a particular variable. That is all it does. So sorry, I think our discussions did not go the way I wanted it to. We have
Sir,
already. Go ahead.
sir, I just wanted to ask that why we cannot use %d in size of int? Why we have to
Because
use
the
different
because size of operator has a fixed return type, that if you use size of, it will always give you unsigned long. That is it. It is, and it is not the same in other compilers. For example, in Turbo C it is %d only. In it is a, yeah, it is in GCC it is fixed that it will always return unsigned long.
Okay, sir.
Our syllabus is still today.
Sir, today's
No,
class,
not today. Syllabus is still last week only.
sir, today's lab class will be taken by Neelu ma'am. So what?
Today's class,
1 hour paper, sir.
it will be 1 hour paper. No, Neelu ma'am has actually taken up that extra slot on Monday that we have now. We have a lab slot on Monday, extra lab slots. So Neelu ma'am has asked me to whether she can arrange a class in that slot.
Yes, sir, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am was asking about what are the times in which both CS1 and CS2 are free together. So
Okay.
that was one of those slots. That and you had said that if some teacher wants it, we can inform them.
Sure. No issues. If I would want an extra class, I will talk to her.
Yes,
That
sir.
is why I don't want to take an extra class. The reason I took this class is because I did not want you guys to get involved with an extra class. So, Vartika, you have a question? Okay, fine. Okay. Yes, you are raising hands.
No, sir, no.
Okay, fine. So guys, we'll break. You have a class, right? So we'll break now, and we will discuss more on size of syllabus of midsem is up to week 4. Okay, up to lecture 4.3. Week 5 is not a part of midsem. Okay, so week 0 to week 4 is the syllabus for midsem. Okay, guys, all the best. We'll probably have more chats over email, but all the best for your midsem exams. Bye, guys.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Thank you, sir.